What is up, second cousins? Glad you're here spending some time with me, your boy, the Red Lettuce. Happy to be joined by that man, Luke Scotchie, all the way here from Orlando Magic HQ. Happy to have you on, sir. Even though our beloved Orlando Magic fall to the Milwaukee Bucks in a heartbreaker, 109 to 106. A little bit of a spoiler for Paolo's return, but he did some good things. Just couldn't finish it at the end, Luke.
Of course, Paolo coming in obviously is going to overshadow any loss, even a loss as heartbreaking as that was. But I think if you're a Magic fan, you're probably going to come away from this game hopeful, if only because, well, Paolo Banchero is back. And
Yeah.
in 27 minutes last night, he had 34 points,
Woo.
went 11 for 21 from the field,
Yes.
5 for 8 from 3, 7
Okay.
rebounds, 3 assists despite him throwing the ball to every which way, 3 steals and a block. You could not ask for a better return from a 34 game absence, especially when you're on a minutes restriction like Paolo was. So out of all the losses that I think that we've had this year, this is probably the loss that I think, oddly, I feel most good about, even though there are plenty of things to talk about with this game.
Yeah, there's too many good vibes to have anything overshadow Paulo's return. I mean, it started with the Undertaker music coming out. I was ready for him to be suplexing and giving people, putting people through the ground. It was a little squirrely to start. The handle was there. He looked a little not himself, but just came through in that second half, showing a big ending with 34 points, as you said. That minutes restriction, Coach Mosley had a funny quip about it in the post-game interviews. Someone asked him about the minutes restriction, if he had gone over or under the minutes restriction, and he said he had gone 30 seconds over. So I guess the minutes restriction last night was 26 minutes. But man, even Paolo Banchero, who, again, I don't think he looked all the way himself, Luke. He was not going to the rim as forcefully as we've seen. I think that might take a couple more games for him just to continue to get that conditioning back and to feel all the way comfortable. But man, that three-point shot was falling, 5 of 8 from 3 and 67% true shooting. It was just a great performance. It looked like an easy 34. And for a team that's been struggling to score, to have a guy that can score an easy 34, a casual day in the park, it's nice to have that back. It's nice to have that back.
It is really, really nice to have that because if you're a Magic fan, you know this. When Paolo Banchero is on the court, your Orlando Magic are a much better basketball team than when he is off of it. And just comparing this game to the game that the Magic played the night before against the Minnesota Timberwolves, against the Bucks, they shot 37 for 86 from the field, good for 43%, which is a pretty good difference from 33 over 86, 38.4 Thursday night. 3-point percentage, 14 for 40 for 35% in the game against Milwaukee. 3-pointers against Minnesota, 10 for 40. That's 25%. And at the line, still a couple of issues there, and we're going to get to those in a second, but still, 18 for 26. It's an improvement because one of Paolo's best skills is to get to the line. That's what makes Paolo such an elite offensive weapon, and it's really what has been the Magic's bread and butter on offense before he went out, and not just this year, but the year prior. Like improvements across the board in terms of the rate stats, and just Paolo being out there, you could see just how much easier it was to play basketball for everybody else. Because again, when Paolo's out there, the Orlando Magic are better. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope said a couple of or leading up to Paolo's return that, being Paolo Banchero having the gravity that he does, that opens up a lot of shots for guys who are very, very good without the ball in their hands. Guys such as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, guys such as Goga Bitadze, guys who benefit a lot from having their defenders go off and try to stop this insane 6'10", 250-pound scoring machine from
Yeah.
putting the ball into the basket. And it makes things look a lot better. Especially that 3-point jump, 35 to 25, from uh, last night's game versus Thursday night's game.
Yeah.
You can tell, even though Paolo had 3 assists, as I mentioned before, it looked as though he was trying his hardest to do so, or to get as many points as he could. The ball was moving in a way that it hadn't moved in a long time, and just again having Paolo back is incredible, and I cannot wait for when he's just finally off that minutes restriction. And if you remember, this is Paolo playing half of the minutes or just over half the minutes in an NBA game.
Yeah.
Pretty soon he'll be playing full NBA games again. And we only lost to a Milwaukee Bucks team with Giannis, who scored 41, and Damian Lillard, who scored 29 by just 3 points. That's
Yeah.
pretty encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, well, just a little bit more about this game before we go into the implications of Paul's return. We're having another conversation about that after this. But yeah, that Dame Lillard and Giannis screen, that pick and roll, it's developing into everything you thought it was going to be when that trade happened. And it was a little
Hmm.
lackluster last year with everything going on with Dame and his family and all that. And he didn't seem acclimated. But that is going to be a really dynamic. I mean, that's just a dynamic option and read for them to make. They did have a huge mix-up at the very end of the game when Jonathan Isaac switched on to Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard threw
Hmm.
it away. The Bucks definitely gave us a number of opportunities to win this game, but we just couldn't quite finish. You mentioned the free throws. We were 11 of 14. We shot almost 79% from the line in the first 3 quarters. And then when it really mattered, we miss 5 in the second half and shoot 58% from the charity stripe. Not much charity there. That was tough to take. And then in the first half, Mosley pointed to it in the press conference, we allowed a couple offensive boards on free throws. So if I had to point to one thing, it's those details, as Mosley was saying. Those are just small little tweaks that if we can make them, we win this game. But as you said, it was all good vibes. I want to give a shout out to Tristan da Silva because it was his first NBA double-double. He has 16 points, 10 boards, 2 assists on 6 of 13 from the floor. I mean, Tristan da Silva has had a tremendous opportunity. It's a little bit of the silver lining here, Luke. We obviously don't want to see anyone go down, but with Paolo and Franz both going down here, Tristan da Silva has had the opportunity to step up and do some things that he probably didn't expect to be doing in his freshman campaign with those two dominant forwards ahead of him in the depth chart. But he's done some more ball handling. You're seeing a little bit of the stop and go, the change of pace with him. He's getting some things off the glass. The shot is quick out of his hand, and you're starting to see, okay, there is a little bit of, if I squint, some Franz Wagner there, and what a dynamic guy we now have when he can eventually go back to his role coming off the bench. Again, tough loss, but Paolo is back. And let's transition into that conversation, unless you have something else to add on this game specifically about the
No,
implications
I
of
do
Paolo's
want, yeah,
return. Because that's really the
I do
big
want to
question.
talk. Yeah, no, I do want to talk a little bit about Tristan, as you were
Hell
saying,
yeah.
because our rookie out of Colorado has really been the silver lining from just this
Yes.
terrible situation we've had. As you said, his first NBA double-double, 16 points, 10 rebounds, 6 for 13 from the field, 2 for 7 from three. He was drafted to be the Swiss Army knife,
Mm-hmm.
this guy who could do a little bit of everything you want him to do when you need him. An older guy, a very smart, intelligent guy who was a really good teammate as well. A guy that you need to kind of fit into your roster. And it was, of course, going to take him some time because, as all rookies do, they don't adjust right away first game unless you're somebody like Paolo Banchero. But with Tristan, you can really see as the second quarter of the season has started to go into full swing when his numbers been called upon more and more that he really has been just incredible and the game is starting to slow down for him. It seems that he's having career highs every other night. The consistency as far as
Right. That's
the
the
field
only
goal
thing.
percentage is not, and especially from three, is not yet there
But that's
as
what
you
you
want it to be.
expect. That's what you expect from
Of
a
course it
rookie.
is, especially from a rookie.
Yeah.
But like the games where you can see what he can be,
Mm.
those games speak loud. 25 points against the Raptors, 9 for 13 from the field, 5 for 7 from three. 21 points against the Nets
Woo!
on December 29th, 8 for
Yep.
15 from the field, 4 for 9 from three. 18 against the Heat, 7 from 12 from the field, and one for three from 3-point line on Boxing Day. And on December 23rd, 18 against Boston, 6 for 11 from the field, and 4 for 8 from the three. He's kind of taking the same role, or having the same development arc that Anthony Black had last year as a rookie. The guy who
Mm.
started off full string, wasn't going to be called upon like unless we needed him.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, we need him,
Yeah.
and he looks like a dog out there, and he's only going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and Tristan da Silva is a very good defender as well. He's causing consternation
Hmm.
for his opponents. He definitely had Damian Lillard frustrated at times, even playing good help defense on Giannis last night. He's just a smart guy. He's got good body technique, straight up and down, moves his feet really, really well. Like you said, that Swiss Army knife. Mosley's going to love you. If you're going to play hard on defense, you're going to earn some minutes. And Tristan da Silva is the type of guy where, with Paolo coming back, like you said, you alluded to earlier, that only elevates what he's going to be able to do because Paolo has so much attention and is drawing so many jerseys from the other team. And Tristan da Silva, much like the cloth that Franz Wagner is cut from, this man likes to cut. He will find open
Hmm.
space. He will move into different pockets. He will cut to the rim, and he is going to feast now with Paolo Banchero. I think Paolo laughed about it in the post-game presser. He's like, yeah, I think that's the first time I've played with Tristan because those first 5 games, Tristan was getting 0 burn. He hadn't quite earned the coach's confidence. But boy, oh boy, after these last, 20, 30 games, he certainly has. He's been popped into the starting lineup, leapfrogging over other players who you thought might get put into that spot. Tristan da Silva is that guy. But with Paolo Banchero coming back, this is an all-star. He's a league-leading type of scoring guy. That's a lot of water that's going to get displaced, Luke. So what are some of the other ripples, maybe for individual players or just overall scheme, that you're going to be looking out for in the next couple weeks here as Paolo and the team get reacclimated? Because there will be a little adjustment, I think, Luke.
Of course there will. Again, there's going to be some kind of adjustment, whether or not just trying to reintegrate Paolo into the season. That was something he talked, or into the Magic's scheme. That was something that he talked about in the shoot-arounds leading up to his return. It's going to be a process that, because the Magic have gelled very, very nicely for the most part without him, trying to fit somebody who is going to require as much usage as your star forward is going to be is going to be difficult
Yeah.
and not that easy to do at all. But it's going to be a process, and you can see the process as the game last night evolved. The first half, you can definitely see that there were kinks being worked out that looked a lot better in the second half, especially from Paolo. But even with the adjustment from a team perspective, it's going to take. I mean, Occam's razor. It's going to be a great, great, great thing to have Paolo back, of course, because you're getting back a guy who is averaging 30 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, and does so option as the guy who gets doubled practically every possession uh, that that he has the ball. This is a team that has been built around Paolo Banchero, and you couldn't have asked for a bigger upgrade because of that. Even though it might take a little bit to adjust, and hopefully it comes soon because these next few games are going to be massive, massive, massive for the Magic in the Eastern Conference right now. But these are now games that um, suddenly, very, very suddenly, went from we might have a shot to Oh, I feel very, very confident now, given our lineup and the injuries that we still have to guys like Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Mo Wagner, etc.
And now Kenny, sadly. Although I don't know, it
Now
didn't look
Kenny's out.
crazy serious, and that guy's an
It
Iron
didn't.
Man.
Yeah, Contavious Caldwell-Pope did leave last night's game with a left knee injury that did look a little scary, at least given what we have,
Gone through. We're
been through all
traumatized,
season.
Luke. We're traumatized.
We're very, very traumatized, just from one
Yeah,
quarter of a season alone.
yeah.
But on the injury report, he is listed as probable to
Oh,
play in tomorrow's game against
ooh,
Philadelphia.
thank God.
Jet Howard, who also left the game
Oh, that's
with
right.
a left ankle
Ankle.
sprain, he is
Yeah.
questionable. Everybody else, Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs, and the Wagner brothers are out as well. But having Paolo back, ultimately, it almost doesn't matter who else is out, especially if Kenny returns. And that's not to
Yeah.
say that we don't need the other guys to make this team complete, because we absolutely do. But there are guys on this team that are healthy right now that have been signed to the Orlando Magic because of how well they play with Paolo Banchero, and Contavious Caldwell Pope is absolutely one of them. I mean, the shooting form, or the shooting hasn't been as pristine as we would like to see all season, but he was a guy that we signed to be that 3-and-D guy, that veteran leader, that this young Magic team that is kind of running its offense right now around Paolo Banchero, a guy who um, attracts a lot of gravity, and a guy who knows what to do with the ball when he has a lot of gravity, and when he's doubled. And the shooting isn't as consistent as it was before, but it is better.
Yeah.
And and again, there's still progress left to do, but it's still encouraging. Last night he went 1 for 2. The night before he went 3 for 4 from the 3-point line. And on January 6th against New York, he went 3 for 6. Had a little bit of a stinker against Utah, going 0 for 4.
Everyone did.
But that, of course, everyone had a stinker that game. But
Yeah.
that game, like everyone else, looks like an outlier, because on January 3rd he had went 3 for 7 from the 3-point line, and at Detroit on New Year's Day he went 4 for 6. So he is having a really, really solid 2025 from the 3-point line, and
Mm-hmm.
that's only going to get better when perhaps the team, or one of the teams, if not the team's best playmaker, a guy who is able to get Contavious Caldwell-Pope, because again, that is what he's very, very good at, what he's been good at, getting open and getting to his spots, so he can catch the ball. That's going to be, because those two guys have played, what was it, 4 or 5 games together before
Right.
Paolo
Yeah.
went down.
Yeah.
Once that connection starts to get a little bit better, I think Contavious Caldwell-Pope is going to have a pretty big jump in production going forward.
I was really happy. So this is going to come out wrong. I was going to say I was really happy when Franz Wagner went down. No, I wasn't. Okay, don't get on me, second cousins, in the comments. I was happy in the way that Kenny responded to that. You really saw the veteran leadership. There wasn't concern. He knew, okay, this is not permanent. We're just going to continue to step up, next man up, believing in Mosley and kind of being that veteran player, reinforcing what Mosley was saying and pushing the ship in the right direction. In his last 10, as you said, he's up to almost 36% from beyond the arc. And a lot of Magic fans were pulling out their hair the way he started the season. But again, recently he stepped up. He's done a little bit more playmaking. He's done a little bit more getting into the paint. And I love to see that. This was a good experiment in that these weren't season-ending injuries for either of our two pillars in Franz and Paolo. Get well soon, Moritz. We love you. But so we knew there was an end in sight with these oblique injuries. So it was still okay for me. I don't know if you out there, second cousins, watching these games, I was kind of excited to see, okay, well, who steps up? Who does things? We've already talked about Tristan da Silva. We talked about how Kenny stepped up. In this most recent game, Anthony Black was a guy who, honestly, I was a little disappointed. I thought he could have been doing more, but we saw that aggressiveness kind of pop back now with Paolo back in the third quarter. I like how Mosley let him kind of run the team and run the show. But my question now is, again, with Paolo coming back and having that over, almost 33% usage, meaning a third of our plays end with that man either taking a shot or making the assist. That's a lot of water to displace. That's a lot of ball time taken from other players. So who are going to be the guys that are going to benefit most from that? And is there anyone that we see, maybe getting hampered by that? I'll start. We already talked about Kenny. We already talked about Tristan. I think those guys are both going to benefit because of what you've talked about. Kenny can be a knockdown, stand still, 3-point shooter. A guy that I also think is going to benefit tremendously is going to be Goga Batadze, because the way that Paolo crashes the glass and brings defenders with them, Goga loves to clean up the garbage. He's always there for offensive boards. And he's going to be feasting when Paolo doesn't quite get the shot to drop. Goga's going to be there to clean it up, to get a board, to get a point. I think we're going to see an improved Goga. I know he didn't have a great game against Giannis. He looked a little lackadaisical. Giannis is a tough guard for anybody, so I expect Goga to continue to bounce back. Who I'm interested to see now is, with Paolo coming back, what goes on with Jet Howard? What goes on with Cole Anthony? Jet Howard wasn't seeing the floor at all, really, in the first part of the season with the injuries. He's gotten some burn. He's done some okay things on the offensive side. Still looks a little overwhelmed on the defensive side. Cole Anthony's had a little bit of a resurgence here, Luke, and I'm hoping that he can continue that going, and there's enough minutes right now for him. And what with Jalen coming back, I don't know, but we're just talking about Paolo right now. Who do you see Paolo's return helping most, and is there any way in which, for me, it would be Cole. It kind of hampers him. He's not going to have the ball enough, and I think Cole really thrives with some more of that ball handling to get him in the zone. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that, at least for right now, as Paolo is starting to ramp up and while Jalen Suggs is still out, I think Cole Anthony is still going to be just fine. But I mean, you're right in this sense that there is reason to be worried, because those few games when Paolo was on the court, Cole Anthony was not doing so well during those games, but he has found his footing. And I do think he's earned his way into the rotation. I don't know if he's going to be as efficient because, like you said, Paolo is going to take up most of the usage on this team, especially while Franz Wagner is out. And you talk a lot about Goga as well. I think he's going to be the type of guy who benefits great, just because Goga is so good at all the little things. And this team needs, and with Paolo Banchero, one of the biggest needs, because Paolo can't do everything, someone else has to do the little things, and that's been Goga. He has not been doing it a lot as of recently. He had a good game against Minnesota, 15 on Thursday, 15 points, 7 for 11 from the field, 0 for 1 from 3, and 8 rebounds. But last night he had 4 points. Against New York, he had 6. And it's honestly just a volume issue. He's just not taking the shots, and he's not having the responsibility of cleanup that he's been having for so long. But I think, to give you an original answer of who benefits most outside
give me the content
of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I am going to give you I think I'm going to give you Wendell Carter.
Wow.
Because, I think my number one answer is still Tristan, but I do think that we're going to see Wendell Carter at least improve his role a little bit, because I am not ultimately.
Are you out? You're not out. You're not out on Wendell. A lot of people out there calling for his removal.
I'm not out on Wendell Carter Jr., and I can't say that I have been, because I've been on the Goga has been better and should be starting train, and he is on the floor a much better fit with Paolo. But I do think that he works, even though we haven't seen it in the starting lineup a lot, he does work really, really well with Goga at the 4.
That's true.
And in those games, we got a lot of production from Goga manning into the paint, and Wendell out near the perimeter, out near the mid range, kind of more further away from the basket than you would like your center to be. And he just looks more comfortable out there, kind of doing that, because we do talk about kind of just Goga being there, um, and being a little bit like the guy that does all the cleanup
Yes.
that Paolo Banchero kind of needs.
Yeah.
Wendell Carter hasn't like that's not his main skill set. His main skill
No.
set is to kind of just go in, get his shots, get a couple of rebounds in theory, and just compete.
Yeah.
And off the bench, when you replace when Paolo comes out, I think Wendell is a really, really good candidate to take that spot for him because of how well he works with Goga, because of how well he's worked as a member of the second unit. And like Goga, he has not been playing well recently. 2 points, 0 for 4 from the field last night against Milwaukee, and 8 points on 3 for 10 shooting against Minnesota the night
Yeah.
before. But against the Knicks, 19 points on 8
Yes.
for 11 shooting. And against the Jazz, one of the few players to have a really solid game, 15 points, 6 for 10 from the field. He
Mm-hmm.
is very capable of getting his double double.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't had one in the last several games,
He's
unfortunately,
showing it
but
though now. He's showing it.
he has shown it.
Yeah.
Like I can definitely like it feels like right now because Goga is a better fit for the starting lineup, he can kind of absorb a role now where
Mhm.
he has a little bit less responsibility and he's going up against more guys in the bench unit
Yeah.
now. At least that's the way that I see it in theory. I don't yet know what Most is thinking. I'm
Right.
just one of those guys that like the fit between Wendell Carter and Goga, and I
Mm.
think it's a very seamless transition when Paolo comes, or not very seamless, but a seamless enough transition when Paolo goes out, Wendell comes in, and you keep Goga for a little while longer.
I like Wendell's role now coming off the bench as that backup four. As you said, he looks more comfortable in that power forward role. He can do a little bit. He
Mm-hmm.
can step out and hit that kind of mid-range jumper, like you said. The three-point ball hasn't been, flourishing this year, but he looks better as that four and coming off the bench. And I think
He
someone
does.
I was talking with on Twitter was saying, Wendell really needs to put his nose to the grindstone and compete for being that sixth man because that could be a great role for him. And my consternation
Mm-hmm.
has been with Wendell probably because he's playing a little bit out of position. I'm seeing him as the five, and I'm like, hey, do big man shit. I need you to be getting boards and protecting the paint. And he's never really been a rim protector type of guy. He's not a big leaper, but that's not his fault. That's the situation that the front office is putting him in. And he's also catching strays because the front office took it upon themselves to extend him a year and a half before they needed to and giving him a raise when he was pretty injury prone. But again, those are not critiques of Wendell. That's a critique of the front office, and they might have their reasons for that, but that's another conversation. Looking ahead, you already mentioned the Philadelphia game here, Luke. You had the injury report open. I don't know if you still do. Is Joel Embiid playing? Are we gonna see their big man? And I know Jared McCain, who's torched us a couple games, he is out for the season, so he's not going to be there. It's definitely a depleted Philadelphia team. We can hopefully get through them, but then we see Milwaukee again, Boston, and Denver. So it's a little bit of a meat grinder here over the next 4 games.
Yeah, no, Joel Embiid, to answer your question, is questionable
Ah,
with a left foot sprain. I mean, not to be mean to the guy, but that kind of has been his official designation for practically every other game.
yeah.
So it really is a 50-50 shot. But um, again, Jared McCain is going to be out for at least a good chunk of the season because he was a huge, huge, huge factor in just about everything that Philadelphia has been. Like any good thing that Philadelphia has done has really come from Jared McCain in those
Yeah.
first 2 games, and now they've kind of had to scramble a little bit in order to find a way to replace that,
Mhm.
especially with the unreliability um,
Of
health
Paul
wise
George and
of Joel Embiid
Embiid.
and like you said, Paul George,
Yeah.
just uh,
Yeah.
on both being healthy and being productive on the court, and they haven't been able to do that. I mean, they've been better than they were at the start. They're the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference right now. They're
Oh,
15 and 21.
God.
They
It's
are out
horrible.
of the play-in, but if we're looking at even just a single silver lining, um, for that Philadelphia 76ers team, at least they're not at the bottom two and contending um, for a for a top pick that I'm honestly not sure that they had um,
Yeah.
going into this season. So
Well,
and it's an
that's a
East.
team they're not concerned really with right now. If they can sneak into the play-in and be playing the playoffs, that's a team that if they're healthy at the right time, no one wants to see. Lucky for us,
Mhm,
they're not healthy right now. The Bucks are the Bucks. We just played them. I think that's a winnable game if Paolo gets some more minutes and we maybe get one of
mhm.
our guys back. Boston's going to be tough. Denver's going to be tough. But then we do have, according to Tankathon here, the second or third easiest schedule for the remainder of the year. We play the Wizards a few times, the Raptors a few times, the Trailblazers, the Hornets. So if we can just keep the ship afloat, go 500 over these next four, there are some very, winnable, easy pickings coming up on the horizon here.
Absolutely. This is without a shadow of a doubt a gauntlet of the next 4 games.
Yeah.
Again, Philadelphia being like Joel Embiid when he's playing, when he's out there, is a guy that you always, always, always have to fear, especially considering what we saw defending Giannis. Defending Joel Embiid is arguably a much more difficult task. And then you get to Milwaukee again. It's going to look similarly to that, but the Magic are just prone to being better because in theory, Paolo Banchero is going to be playing more often or more minutes. Contavious Caldwell Pope is going to be in those in those late game situations,
Yeah.
and hopefully that game against Milwaukee is a game that he ends up playing in. And the Celtics, I am excited to see the Magic and the Celtics. We all remember the game against December 23rd when Tristan had that game clincher.
Yep.
One of the best games of the year, no doubt. But this is not a team that you can expect to repeat any semblance of Magic for. And then you got a Denver Nuggets team that had a very, very slow start, but has seemingly found their footing. They are like losing Contavious Caldwell Pope and replacing him with Russell Westbrook has not been as bad as you
Yeah.
would anticipate they'd be.
Yeah.
They're the fourth seed in the Western Conference, 22-15, 2-game winning streak, 6-4 in their last 10, but they are a they're
They
a
got the best
team
player in the
that
game, so
they have the best player in basketball.
yeah.
And again, we saw how he defended Giannis.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic, I think, is definitely going to be a little bit more difficult task. But the Magic have had some really good games against Denver in the past. We remember the early January game. I think that was Paolo's first triple double. That we had a massive comeback, and that was arguably one of the defining like games of what was a really really magical season last year.
Yeah.
But those 4 games are going to be very very difficult. But you have a lineup of teams that consists of Toronto, who is the worst
Right.
team in the Eastern Conference right now,
Yeah.
Portland,
Trailblazers. Yeah.
who is the 13th seed
Yeah.
in the Western Conference right now, an
Mhm.
ascending but still beatable Pistons team,
Yeah.
a descending and
Yeah.
very beatable Miami Heat team,
Right. No, there's a lot of
and again you
winnable
have
games
Portland.
here.
Yeah,
The,
you
the,
got Portland again. You have
and this
I mean the Jazz in theory, but I guess the Jazz have our number.
right.
And Warriors and Kings teams that are kind of in a little bit of
Yeah,
a
the weird
uh,
spot.
weird spot right now.
Yeah.
Atlanta, who's beatable, Charlotte,
Yeah.
who's beatable, Atlanta, who's beatable. You don't have a game that makes you go, oh my, until the Memphis Grizzlies
Mhm.
against or at the Magic on February 21st after the All-Star break, after you
Yeah.
start to consider the possibility of a certain Franz Wagner coming back.
Hey,
That was the
knock
team
on
that beat
wood to
us
that.
earlier in the season when we were, for the most part, healthy. But
Yeah. No,
it'll be a fun rematch, especially if Franz comes back.
there are some tough ones here, but the thing that I love about this team, and we love second cousins, is that these young men they accept every challenge, and they think every single game is winnable, and every game is winnable with the heart that they put in and the tenacity they put, especially on the defensive side. Now you've got your all-star, your top scorer, Paolo Banchero. So anything is possible! And like Mosley always touched on coming into this year, and a lot of the guys talked about, they realized the importance of those games in January and February. So there's no sleeping on these anymore. There's no sleepwalking through this middle part of the season. They know that these games they count just as much at the ones at the beginning and at the end, especially as a team that's trying to get into that top 4 seed. And it's all in play right now, Second Cousins. Luke, thank you so much for jumping on here and taking some time. Make sure, Second Cousins, I'm sure you already are, but if you've been under a rock, go check out everything at OrlandoMagicHQ.com, everything they're doing. Close Up Magic, they got the podcast, they do the Twitter Spaces after the games. Tremendous outfit. We love those guys over there. And again, thank you so much, Luke, for coming on with me.
Happy to be here. It's always a pleasure, man.
All right, we'll have to do it again sometime. Until then, peace out, Second Cousins.